I got stranded at a gas station overnight and met a creepy man in the 24/7 diner. What happened next felt straight out of a horror movie. It was close to midnight when my car sputtered to a stop on the highway. I've been driving for hours, trying to get to my dad's place 2 states over. My phone was at 9%, and the nearest help was a lonely gas station off an old exit I barely noticed in time. I coasted into the lot, parked under one of the flickering overhead lights, and stepped out into the kind of cold that seeps straight into your bones. The place looked like it had been there since the 80s. Cracked pavement, dusty windows, a single ancient pump. But what caught my attention was the small 24/7 diner attached to the station. Its buzzing neon sign read, "Open," in garish pink letters, and the inside glowed a sickly yellow from fluorescent lights. I figured I'd go in, charge my phone, get some coffee, and wait until morning when I could call for help. The diner was empty except for one man sitting in the farthest booth, facing the wall. He was dressed in an old green coat and had a tattered duffel bag beside him. I gave a quick nod, but he didn't move. Just kept muttering to himself in a rhythm, like a broken song. The waitress, a tired woman in her 50s, barely looked up when I sat down. "One coffee?" she asked flatly. "Yeah, thanks." "And do you know if there's a mechanic around here?" She stared at me a second too long before saying, "Not until morning." I tried to shake off the feeling that something was off. My phone was charging in the outlet behind me. The silence in the diner was heavy, broken only by the occasional hiss of the coffee machine or the muttering from the man in the booth. After a while, he turned. His face was weathered, eyes wide and watery, and when he looked at me, it felt like he was trying to see inside my skull. "You ever seen what comes out of the woods at 3 a.m.? he asked. I laughed nervously. "Can't say I have." He didn't smile, just leaned in and whispered, "Sometimes they don't let you leave." I tried to ignore the guy's cryptic warning. Maybe he was just another lonely drifter playing mind games to pass the time. But there was something about his tone, like he wasn't trying to scare me, just stating a fact. The waitress returned, placed the mug in front of me, and leaned in slightly. "Don't talk to him," she muttered under her breath. "He's always here, every night, just drinks water and talks to the shadows." I turned to ask more, but she was already gone, disappearing behind the swinging doors to the kitchen. The man, who I now realized hadn't even touched a drink or plate, slowly stood and shuffled to the jukebox in the corner. He didn't put in any coins. He just stared at the machine for what felt like 5 minutes straight, humming a strange tune that didn't sound like anything I recognized, low, dissonant, almost like it was missing notes. Then, just as quietly, he returned to his booth and resumed muttering. "I figurati de distract myself." I opened my phone to check the time, 1:42 a.m., still hours before daylight. I was just about to scroll through something to keep my mind off things when I noticed a new photo in my gallery. I hadn't taken any pictures that day. I opened it. It was of me, sitting at the diner booth, taken from outside the window at night. I stood up so fast I spilled the coffee. The waitress reappeared, eyes wide. "What happened?" I showed her the photo. "Someone's outside, watching." She went to the window and looked out into the darkness. Nothing, just the empty lot, the long stretch of highway, and the edge of the woods beyond. But I could feel it, something was there, watching from just beyond the reach of the light. The man in the booth suddenly spoke louder. "You ever see them blink? Their eyes are wrong. Too black, too wide. What the hell is he talking about?" I snapped. The waitress shook her head. "You need to stay inside. Don't go out there. Not until the sun's up." I was starting to panic. "Call the cops." "No signal," she said. "There never is after midnight." My phone backed her up, no bars. The charger was still plugged in, but the battery was stuck at 9%. I looked at the door, locked now without me noticing. The man was laughing softly, tapping his fingers in an odd rhythm. Then the lights flickered once, twice, and cut out. Complete darkness. I heard the shuffle of feet from the booth across the diner. And something else. Something outside was knocking. Not on the door, not even on the windows. On the roof. A slow, dragging knock, as if fingers were moving across the metal above. The man spoke again, this time directly at me. "They're curious tonight. Might not wait till dawn." I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I moved toward the window and peered out into the black. Two, I stared back. I stumbled backward, crashing into a chair as the eyes outside blinked. Not human blinking, though, more like a camera shutter, mechanical and too fast. They vanished into the dark as soon as they saw I noticed them. The waitress grabbed my arm and hissed, "Don't let them see fear. That's what draws them closer." "What are they?" I whispered, my pulse roaring in my ears. She glanced toward the kitchen. "Not people. They come some nights when someone new shows up, especially if they're alone." Then she paused. "You are alone, right?" I didn't answer, but something told me she already knew. The lights came back on, flickering unevenly like they were fighting something. The man in the booth was still there, now sketching into a small notebook with what looked like charcoal. His hands were filthy. I couldn't see what he was drawing until I got closer. Dozens of them. Dozens of tall, thin, gray shapes with no faces. Only pitch-black holes where features should be. And in the corner of the page, unmistakably, was me, sitting right where I stood, drawn in painful detail. I tore the notebook from him. "What the hell is this?" "They let me see," he whispered, licking his lips. "I draw what they show me. They don't like being ignored." Suddenly, the floor beneath us made a dull groaning sound, like something underneath the diner was shifting. I turned to the waitress, but she was gone. The kitchen doors slowly creaked open, and beyond them, nothing. Just pure, endless black, like a tunnel of ink. Then movement. Something began to crawl out. Not fast, not aggressive, just wrong. It didn't have legs. It folded out, like bones that bent too many times, joints that didn't belong to any real creature. It scraped along the tile, slowly, almost like it was sniffing. The old man chuckled without looking up. "You should have stayed on the road. Now, they know you exist." I backed toward the front of the diner, heart pounding, unsure what to do. I tried the door, still locked. My phone was dead now, even though it had been plugged in. No signal, no power, no help. The creature from the kitchen paused, then tilted its head in my direction. It had no eyes, but I knew it saw me. Then it spoke, not with a mouth, but in my head. A cold, genderless voice. "You don't belong here." The air went cold. My breath clouded. The man's notebook caught fire without warning, right there in his hands, but he didn't even flinch. Then came the final, horrifying confirmation that this wasn't just some nightmare. Through the window, I saw my car, and it was gone. Not stolen. Gone like it had never existed. I just stood there, frozen, staring at the empty parking lot where my car had been. The cracked asphalt looked undisturbed, like no vehicle had ever rolled across it. No oil stains, no tire marks, nothing. I began breathing too fast. My lungs couldn't keep up. I wasn't just stranded. I was erased. The old man laughed again. Louder this time, and his teeth were too many. More than any human should have. His gums were purple and wet, like meat left out too long. "You thought you could come and go," he said, his voice somehow echoing in the tiny diner. "But this place chooses who it keeps." The kitchen door slammed shut behind me. The thing that had crawled out earlier was nowhere in sight now. Just a faint trail of black liquid smeared across the tiles. I ran to the bathroom. Locked. I banged on it anyway, not knowing what I expected. The humming sound began again, that same low, vibrating tone I had heard earlier in the corner booth, but this time it was everywhere. It pulsed through the walls, the windows, my bones. Then the lights died. Complete darkness. I turned around and saw nothing. I waved my arms in front of my face. Nothing. I couldn't even tell if my eyes were open. And then came the breathing, right next to my ear. Slow, deliberate, wet. I ran blindly and crashed into a table, knocking over a tray of silverware that hit the floor in an explosion of noise. When the lights finally flickered back on, I saw something written on the steamed-up window glass near the door. "We were hungry. You were warm." I backed away. The waitress was behind the counter again, but her skin looked gray now, eyes sunken, lips dry and cracked. "Almost morning," she croaked. "They don't like the sun. That's the only reason you're still breathing." "Let me go," I whispered. She shook her head. "It doesn't work like that. You were curious. Now you've seen. They won't forget that." She pulled out a faded, blood-stained guest book from under the counter and flipped to the latest entry. It was my name, in my handwriting. Time of arrival, 12:14 a.m. Expected departure, unknown. My heart dropped. I didn't write that. You will, she said. I heard a loud thud behind me. The old man had vanished, but his notebook, the one I'd seen burning earlier, was back, sitting neatly on the table. I walked over, hesitating, then opened it. The pages were blank. Then they started writing themselves, in real time, right in front of me. A full account of what I had seen since walking through the door. Word for word. My thoughts. My panic. Even things I hadn't said out loud. And then the final line, still forming in messy, shaky letters. And then I realized I would never leave. I slammed the notebook shut and threw it across the diner. It hit the wall and fell open on the floor, pages fluttering like wings. I didn't dare look again. The fact that it knew my thoughts, things I hadn't said aloud, made my skin crawl in a way I can't even explain. Like something had gotten inside my head and set up camp. The humming didn't stop this time. It got louder, higher, like metal scraping against metal, but from inside my ears. I turned toward the windows, the ones that used to look out at the parking lot. But now, they didn't look outside at all. There was no sky, no dark, no gas station, just endless black fog, swirling slowly like oil in water. And sometimes faces moved inside it, pressed up against the glass, twisted, grinning, melting. The waitress said nothing. She simply walked to the jukebox, pressed a button without looking, and a slow, ancient song began to play. A warblite old tune, like a dance from the 1940s that had been left to rot. I started shaking. Not from cold, not from fear, from something deeper. Something old. Something that felt like it had touched me long before I was ever born. I backed into the corner booth, the one where the man had first spoken to me. It smelled like vinegar and wet soil. The seat was still warm, but not like a person had just left. No, it was body warm. Alive warm. There was something on the table now. A cup of coffee. Black. No steam. A fly buzzing lazily above it. And a napkin. I picked it up. You're still dreaming. But they're awake. The lights flickered again, dimmer now. More orange. Like a dying sun trapped inside a bulb. And then, I heard it. A train horn. Faint. Far away. I turned sharply. The fog outside was moving. Slowly pulling back. The outlines of the parking lot started to return, ghost-like, and washed out. My car wasn't there, but something else was. A rusted school bus. No lights. No movement. Just parked there, right in front of the door. I looked back at the waitress. Her eyes were gone now. Two dark hollows. But she was smiling. They're offering you a ride, she said, voice like glass cracking. I don't want to ride, I said, my voice barely a whisper. You don't get to choose anymore, she said. Behind her, the clock above the counter ticked loudly. It was 5:51 a.m., 9 minutes until dawn. Whatever happened when the sun rose, I had a feeling it wouldn't save me. I stared at that rusted school bus outside the diner window, like it was a coffin on wheels. No driver. No movement. But somehow, it felt like it was waiting for me. Like it had always been waiting. Since before I pulled into this godforsaken station. Since before I was born. The clock ticked. 5:52 morgens. I backed away from the table. My heartbeat thumped against my skull. The waitress, or whatever thing had become the waitress, followed me with her eyeless stare. You're almost out of time, she said, gently brushing crumbs off the counter like it was just another morning. No, I'm done with this. I turned to the door and rushed outside, pushing through the diner's heavy glass. The air hit me like a wall. It smelled like ozone and rot. The fog was clearing, but wrong. Too crisp, too staged, like a film set pretending to be real life. The bus door creaked open. I should have run. I know I should have. But something, curiosity, stupidity, maybe something deeper, pulled me forward. I climbed the stairs. Inside, the bus was empty. Not just of people, of everything. No seats, no floor markings, just endless space. And in the far back corner, a small, flickering television screen bolted to nothing, playing me. A live feed of myself stepping into the bus. Except in that feed, the version of me didn't stop at the doorway. He walked straight to the screen, smiled into it, and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then he slit his own throat. The screen went black. I bolted out, fell onto the pavement, and scrambled back toward the diner. But it was gone. Vanished. No building. No neon. No wateris. Just empty, cracked asphalt and a gas pump rusted with time that had no hoses, no numbers, no sound. Like it had never been functional. Like it had never existed at all. The clock on my phone read 6 a.m. I stood in the middle of that lot, shivering. And then the sun began to rise. Or I thought it did. Because what came up over the horizon wasn't the sun. It was a giant pulsing eye. Pink. Veined. Vet. And it blinked once slow, then stared straight down at me. I screamed. And then everything snapped. Suddenly, I was back in my car. On the freeway. Driving through dawn. Coffee in the cup holder. Radio playing soft rock. GPS chirping the next exit. Like none of it had happened. But I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel awake. Because when I glanced into my rearview mirror, I saw a single figure sitting in my back seat. A man in a greasy flannel jacket with a crooked grin. The one from the diner. He leaned in close and whispered. "You left the door open. Hey guys, let me know your opinions in the comments, and of course, subscribe."